The dark void of space stretched endlessly in all directions. Among the stars, sleek silver ships moved like hunting wolves. Their hulls gleamed with a strange blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. These were the warships of the Kethmori Empire, and they had been conquering worlds for 300 years. Captain Velther stood on the bridge of his flagship. The Eternal Blade, his tall, thin frame, cast a long shadow across the control panels. Like all Kethmori, his skin was pale gray and his eyes glowed with a soft purple light. Two small horns curved back from his forehead, marking him as a warrior of high rank. "Report," Velther said in his cold, precise voice, his second in command. Sub-Captain Morthic turned from his station. "The 7th Fleet is ready for the next conquest, Captain. 215 ships await your orders." Velther nodded slowly. 215 worlds had fallen before his fleet. Each victory had been swift and clean. The Kethmori way was simple: arrive, destroy the enemy fleet, demand surrender. Most species gave up after seeing their best ships turn to burning metal in mere minutes. "Tell me about this new species," Velther commanded, Morthic touched his control panel. A hologram appeared in the air between them. It showed a blue and green planet orbiting a yellow star. "They call themselves humans, Captain. They live on a world they name Earth. Our scouts report they have spread to 12 other worlds in their local area." "Their technology?" Velther asked. "Primitive," Morthic replied with something that might have been a smile. "They still use projectile weapons, metal bullets fired by chemical explosions. Their ships move by burning fuel and pushing hot gas out the back. Very crude." Velther walked to the large window that showed the stars ahead. His reflection stared back at him, a tall figure in dark blue armor that seemed to absorb light. "How primitive?" "Our intelligence says they have been in space for less than 200 years. They fight with missiles that explode and cannons that fire solid metal balls. Their armor is simple steel plates. Nothing that can stand against plasma fire or quantum disruptors. Any shields? Basic energy barriers only, nothing like our quantum matrices." Velther felt the familiar satisfaction of an easy victory ahead. The Kethmori had perfected warfare long ago. Their ships could fire beams of pure energy that tore through any known armor. Their shields could stop any attack by bending space itself around their hulls. Most importantly, they fought from long range with perfect accuracy. "How long since our last conquest?" he asked. 6 months, Captain. The Vrelian homeworld." Velther remembered that battle. The Vrelians had been proud warriors with powerful ships. They had lasted almost an hour against the 7th Fleet. Their quantum torpedoes had actually managed to damage 2 Kethmori vessels before the end. It had been their longest fight in recent years. And before that, the Zephyrian colonies. They surrendered after we destroyed their patrol fleet. "Without firing a shot at us," Velther noted. Most species were smart enough to surrender once they saw Kethmori technology in action. It saved time and lives on both sides. The bridge grew quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's quantum engines. Velther looked out at his fleet. Each ship was a work of art and deadly science. Their hulls curved in graceful lines that confused enemy targeting systems. Blue energy flowed through channels carved into their sides, powering weapons that could melt mountains. "Captain," another officer called out, "we are receiving a transmission from the human outer colonies." "Display it." The air above the command center filled with the image of a human face. The creature had pale pink skin and short brown hair. Its eyes were small and dark. To Velther, it looked weak and soft. "Unknown vessels," the human said in a harsh, choppy language. "You have entered human space. State your intentions or prepare to be fired upon." Morthic laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "They threaten us? With what weapons?" Velther studied the human's face. He saw no fear there, which was interesting. Most species showed terror when they first encountered the Kethmori fleet. This human looked angry instead. "Open a channel," Velther ordered. When the connection was made, he spoke in the human language. The Kethmori were excellent at learning new tongues. I am Captain Velther of the Kethmori 7th Fleet. You will surrender your worlds to the Empire or be destroyed. The human's face twisted with rage. We don't surrender to alien scum. If you want our worlds, come and take them. The transmission ended. Morthic turned to his captain. Shall we destroy their patrol ships as an example? Velther considered this. Most species became more reasonable after losing a few vessels. Yes, show them the power of the Empire. The first human ships appeared on their sensors soon after. They were ugly things, long metal tubes with engines at the back and weapons stuck on the sides. They moved slowly and left trails of burning fuel behind them. 12 human vessels approaching, the weapons officer reported. They are launching missiles. Velther watched the attack with mild interest. Dozens of small rockets streaked toward his fleet. The missiles were fast but simple, just explosives with basic guidance systems. Raise shields, he ordered, though. It was hardly necessary. The quantum matrix barriers activated around each Kethmori ship. The human missiles struck the shields and exploded harmlessly. Not one reached their hulls. Return fire, Velther commanded. Purple beams of concentrated energy lanced out from his ships. Each beam was perfectly aimed and devastatingly powerful. The first human vessel it touched simply came apart, its hull peeling away like paper in a fire. The second ship exploded in a ball of flame. The third tried to turn away, but the beam followed it, cutting through its engines and leaving it dead in space. In less than 5 minutes, all 12 human ships were destroyed, as expected, Morthic said. Shall we proceed to their colonies? Velther nodded. These humans would learn what every other species had learned. The Kethmori Empire was unstoppable. Their ships were superior, their weapons were devastating, and their tactics were perfect. Soon, Earth would join the list of conquered worlds. He had no way of knowing that somewhere in human space, desperate minds were already working on a different kind of solution. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the command center of Luna Base, watching the holographic display with growing horror. Red markers showed the advance of the alien fleet across human space. Each red dot represented a world under attack or already fallen. Sir, we just lost contact with New Geneva, reported Lieutenant Commander Lisa Hayes. Her voice was steady, but Morrison could see the fear in her eyes. That makes 7 colonies in the past week. Morrison was a big man with gray hair and deep lines around his eyes. He had fought in 3 wars before the aliens came. Nothing had prepared him for this. The enemy moved faster than any human fleet could match. Their weapons cut through the best human armor like it was made of paper. What about the 3rd Fleet? He asked. No word from Admiral Parker since yesterday, Hayes replied. The last transmission was a distress call from the Titan. System, Morrison closed his eyes for a moment. The 3rd Fleet had been humanity's strongest force, 42 ships, including 3 heavy cruisers. If they were gone, Earth had lost almost half of its military power in less than 2 weeks. The command center doors burst open. A young woman in a torn uniform stumbled inside, supported by 2 Marines. Her left arm was in a makeshift sling and burns covered the side of her face. Captain Kate Sullivan, reporting, sir, she said, trying to stand straight. USS Defiance, survivor of the Proxima battle. Morrison knew that name. The Defiance was a destroyer that had been with the 5th Fleet when they engaged the aliens near Proxima Centauri. That battle was supposed to be humanity's first real test against the enemy. Captain, what happened out there? Morrison asked. Sullivan's eyes were haunted. They slaughtered us, sir. We had 28 ships. Good ships with experienced crews. The aliens had about 50 vessels, and we thought we could put up a fight. She paused, breathing heavily. Their shields, Admiral. Our missiles just exploded against them without doing any damage. Our laser cannons couldn't even scratch their hulls. But their weapons, she shuddered. Purple beams that cut right through our armor like it wasn't there. The flagship Nebraska just came apart in pieces. How did you escape? We were hit early and lost most of our systems. The aliens thought we were dead, so they left us drifting. We watched them destroy the rest. of the fleet before we could get engines back online. Morrison felt a cold weight in his stomach. 28 ships destroyed, probably 1,000 good people dead, and the aliens had barely been scratched. "Did you learn anything useful?" he asked, but Sullivan nodded slowly. "Their shields don't seem to work well against solid objects moving very fast. When the cruiser Phoenix was destroyed, some of the debris hit one of their ships. It actually damaged their hull." "Debris?" "Big chunks of metal, sir, moving at high speed from the explosion. The alien shields stopped our energy weapons and explosive missiles, but the solid debris went right through." Morrison thought about this. All human weapons relied on energy or explosives. Lasers, plasma cannons, fusion missiles, everything designed to deliver maximum energy to the target. But if the alien shields could stop energy attacks? "Admiral," Hayes called out, "you need to see this." Morrison walked over to her station. The display showed incoming reports from across human space. More red markers appeared every hour. The aliens were moving toward Earth from 3 different directions, destroying everything in their path. "How long before they reach Earth?" Morrison asked. "At their current rate of advance, maybe 2 weeks, Hayes replied. "Sir, we don't have enough ships left to stop them. Even if we gather every remaining vessel, Norrison knew she was right. The human fleet was broken. Most of their experienced captains were dead. The aliens had proven that human technology was no match for their advanced weapons and shields, but Sullivan's report gave him an idea, a desperate, probably insane idea. "Hayes, find Captain Ben Carter. Tell him I need to see him immediately." "Sir?" "Carter is currently assigned to that experimental ship. The one they were going to scrap." "The Ironclad? Yes, I know." Morrison had heard about the USS Ironclad. It was supposed to be the Navy's newest heavy cruiser, but the project had gone wrong from the start. Instead of the latest energy weapons and quantum shields, the designers had built something that looked like it belonged in an ancient war. The ship carried massive kinetic cannons, railguns, and something the crew called storm batteries, thousands of rapid-fire projectile weapons. Most admirals considered it a waste of resources. Modern space combat was about precision energy weapons and long-range missiles. The Ironclad was built for close combat using old-fashioned bullets and explosive shells. It was like bringing a sword to a laser fight, but maybe that was exactly what they needed. Captain Ben Carter arrived an hour later. He was younger than Morrison expected, with short black hair and intense green eyes. His uniform was different too, darker and more practical than the standard Navy dress. "Admiral," Carter said with a casual salute. "You wanted to see me? Tell me about your ship, Captain." Carter smiled, and Morrison could see why other officers found him difficult. There was something wild in that smile, like a man who enjoyed dangerous situations. "The Ironclad is different, sir. While everyone else was building ships to fight clean, long-range battles, we built one for dirty, close-up work. Railguns that can punch through anything. Armor thick enough to ram another ship. And enough conventional firepower to level a city. Conventional firepower? Bullets, sir. Lots and lots of bullets. High-velocity rounds, explosive shells, armor-piercing slugs. My weapons officer, Amy Foster, can put 50,000 rounds downrange in 30 seconds. Morrison thought about what Sullivan had reported. Solid objects penetrating alien shields. What about your crew? Handpicked misfits, mostly. Lisa Hammond on tactical. She used to race attack fighters before joining the Navy. Matt Rodriguez. In engineering, he can make any machine work twice as hard as it was designed for. Amy Foster on weapons. She grew up hunting with her grandfather and knows more about ballistics than anyone in the fleet. These were not the kind of officers who got promoted to command positions. They were the troublemakers, the ones who didn't follow standard procedures. Captain Carter, Morrison said slowly. How would you like to save humanity? Carter's smile grew wider. What did you have in mind, sir? Morrison looked at the tactical display again. The red markers were getting closer to Earth every hour. Soon, the alien fleet would arrive and finish what they had started. unless someone could find a way to stop them. The alien shields can't stop solid projectiles, Morrison explained. Your ship is armed with kinetic weapons. I want you to take the ironclad and show these aliens what human determination looks like. Carter's eyes lit up with excitement. You want us to fight the entire alien fleet? Alone? I want you to remind them that humans don't give up. Ever. Carter stood up and saluted properly this time. Yes, sir. When do we leave? Immediately, and Captain, don't try to fight fair. These aliens have conquered 200 worlds by being superior. Show them what happens when they meet someone who refuses to lose. As Carter left to prepare his ship, Morrison stared at the tactical display. He had just sent one experimental vessel against an entire alien fleet. It was probably suicide. But sometimes, when facing impossible odds, the only choice was to do something impossible in return. Captain Velther stood on the bridge of the Eternal Blade, watching the blue and green world called Earth grow larger on his screens. The Seventh Fleet had swept through human space like a storm. 12 colonies had fallen without meaningful resistance. The primitive humans had learned what every other species discovered. The Kethmori Empire was unstoppable. Final approach to the human homeworld, Sub-Captain Morthic reported. All ships are in attack formation, Velther nodded. Earth would be the crown jewel of this conquest. Intelligence reports said over 8 billion humans lived on this world. Once it fell, the remaining human colonies would surrender without a fight. Any sign of their fleet? Velther asked. Long-range sensors detect scattered groups of ships, but they appear to be retreating. It seems the humans have learned wisdom. That was disappointing but not surprising. Most species ran when they realized they could not win. The humans had been more aggressive than most, but even their stubborn nature had limits. Sir, the sensor officer called out. Single contact approaching. From Earth's direction. Human vessel, moving at high speed. Velther turned to look at the tactical display. A lone red dot was indeed moving toward his fleet of over 200 ships. The human vessel was large for their technology, but still tiny compared to Kethmori. Warships. One ship? Morthic asked with amusement. Are they bringing us a surrender message? Analyze the vessel, Velther ordered. The sensor officer worked at his station for several minutes. Captain, this ship is unusual. It appears to be heavily armored, much thicker plates than normal human vessels. I am detecting large kinetic weapons instead of their usual energy systems. Kinetic weapons? Projectile cannons, sir. Very large ones, and many smaller rapid-fire weapons across the hull? Velther found this interesting. The humans were adapting. Their tactics, though, it would not help them. Projectile weapons were ancient technology. The Kethmori had stopped using such crude systems thousands of years ago. Are they trying to ram us? Morthic wondered. Perhaps they hope to die gloriously, Velther replied. Open a communication channel. The screen filled with the image of a human male. This one was different from the others they had encountered. His eyes held no fear, only cold determination. Behind him, Velther could see a bridge filled with unusual equipment. Everything looked heavier and more brutal than STNDARD human technology. I am Captain Ben Carter of the USS Ironclad, the human said. You've had your fun conquering defenseless colonies. Now you face a real warship, Velther almost smiled. The human's confidence was amusing. I am Captain Velther of the Kethmori. 7th Fleet. You cannot seriously intend to fight our entire fleet with one ship. Watch me, Carter replied and cut the transmission. How refreshing, Morthic said. A human with courage, even if he lacks intelligence. Velther studied the approaching ship on his screens. The vessel was indeed heavily built. Its hull was angular and practical rather than elegant. Massive gun turrets dotted its surface like the spines of some ancient sea creature. It looked primitive and brutal compared to Kethmori vessels. Distance to target? He asked. 2 million kilometers and closing fast, the sensor officer reported. The human ship is accelerating beyond normal parameters for their technology. Let them come closer. I want to study their final desperate attack before we destroy them. The ironclad continued its charge toward the alien fleet. On its bridge, Captain Carter watched the enemy ships grow larger on his displays. The Kethmori vessels were beautiful in their own way, sleek silver forms that seemed to bend light around themselves. But beauty would not save them from what was coming. Distance to effective range? Carter asked. 3 minutes until we can use the railguns, replied Lisa Hammond from the tactical station. She was a small woman with quick hands and faster reflexes. Storm batteries will be effective in 90 seconds. Matt, how are the engines holding? Up, Carter called to his chief engineer. Matt Rodriguez was a stocky man who treated machines like living things. Pushing 110%, Captain. She's running hot but holding together. Good. Amy, are the guns ready? Amy Foster was hunched over her weapons console like a predator watching prey. All systems green, sir. Kinetic penetrators. Loaded in the railguns. Storm batteries loaded with high-velocity rounds. We've got enough ammunition to fight for 6 hours. Carter smiled grimly. They would not need 6 hours. This battle would be over in minutes, one way or another. On the Eternal Blade, Velther watched the human ship approach with growing interest. The vessel was moving faster than any human ship they had previously encountered. Its engines burned with unusual intensity, leaving a bright trail across space. Shall we begin the attack, Captain? The weapons officer asked. Not yet. Let them get closer. I want to see what desperate plan they have devised. The ironclad reached 1 million kilometers from the alien fleet. At this range, most space battles were decided. Energy weapons could strike with perfect accuracy across such distances, but Carter ordered his ship to keep charging forward. 800,000 kilometers, Hammond reported. They're not firing, they're waiting for something. Let them wait, Carter said. We fight at our range, not theirs. Velther finally lost patience with the human game. Fire a warning shot, show them the power of our weapons. A single purple beam lanced out from the nearest Kethmori destroyer. The energy blast struck empty space just ahead of the ironclad. Creating a brilliant flash of light. Carter did not even slow down. 500,000 kilometers, Hammond announced. Entering effective range for railguns in 30 seconds. Target their lead ship, Carter ordered. Amy, give them a taste of human firepower. The first railgun fired with a sound like thunder. The massive kinetic penetrator shot out of the barrel at a significant fraction of light speed. It was a simple chunk of dense metal, but it carried the force of a small asteroid. The projectile struck the Kethmori destroyer's shields and punched straight through. The quantum matrix that had stopped thousands of energy weapons was useless. Against solid matter moving at such velocity, the penetrator slammed into the destroyer's hull and tore through 3 decks before exploding out the other side. Velther stared in shock as atmosphere vented from his ship's wounds. Impossible. How did their weapon penetrate our shields? Before anyone could answer, the ironclad fired again and again. Each railgun shot found its mark, punching holes in Kethmori vessels that had never been damaged in 3 centuries of conquest. Return fire, Velther commanded. All ships, concentrate on that human vessel. Dozens of purple energy beams converged on the ironclad. The ship's armor glowed white-hot under the bombardment, but the thick steel plates held. Where most human ships would have been destroyed instantly, the ironclad kept charging forward. 300,000 kilometers, Hammond called out. Storm batteries coming online. Amy, show them what real firepower looks like. Carter said. The storm batteries opened fire, and space filled with thousands of projectiles. Each gun could fire 100 rounds per second, and the ironclad carried over 50 of them. A wall of metal death swept toward the alien fleet. The Kethmori ships tried to evade, but their elegant formations became a liability at close range. High-velocity rounds punched through shields and armor alike. Small explosions bloomed across alien hulls as human bullets found their marks. This is impossible. Morthic shouted over the noise of alarms. Their primitive weapons should not be effective against our technology. Velther watched in growing horror as his perfect fleet was torn apart by simple projectiles. The humans had found the one weakness in Kethmori defenses. Their shields could not stop solid matter moving fast enough. "All ships, retreat to long range," he ordered. "Reform the battle line," but it was too late. The ironclad was among them now, its guns firing constantly. Each shot meant more damage to ships that had never known defeat. For the first time in centuries, the Kethmori Empire was learning what it meant to lose. The USS Ironclad plowed through the center of the Kethmori fleet like a hammer through glass. Captain Ben Carter stood on his bridge, watching alien ships scatter in panic as his guns tore them apart. For 300 years, these creatures had conquered worlds with elegant precision. Now they faced something they had never encountered before: pure human brutality. "Distance to the flagship?" Carter asked. 50,000 kilometers in closing, Lisa Hammond replied from Tactical. Her fingers danced across her controls as she tracked dozens of targets at once. The big one in the center, that's their command ship. Carter could see it through the main viewer. The Eternal Blade was twice the size of any other Kethmori vessel, its hull covered in glowing blue channels that pulsed with alien energy. It was beautiful in its own way, but Carter had no interest in art. He wanted to break it. "Matt, give me everything the engines have," he called to engineering. "Already at 115%, Captain," Matt Rodriguez replied. "Any more and we risk containment failure." "Risk it," Carter said. "Amy, prepare the storm cannons." "Amy." Foster looked up from her weapons station with a wild grin. "Been waiting for this moment, sir." Storm cannons are loaded and ready. The storm cannons were Carter's secret weapon. Chief Engineer Rodriguez had spent months modifying the ships. Main batteries into something that could fire thousands of rounds per minute. Each cannon held depleted uranium slugs designed to punch through the thickest armor ever built. The ironclad closed the distance to the alien flagship in seconds. Purple energy beams struck its hull constantly, but the thick armor plates held. Where other human ships would have been destroyed, the ironclad kept moving forward like an unstoppable force of nature. 10,000 kilometers, Hammond announced. "Optimal range for storm cannons." "Fire," Carter ordered. The storm cannons opened up with a sound like continuous thunder. Thousands of depleted uranium rounds streaked toward the Eternal Blade at incredible velocity. The alien shields, designed to stop energy weapons, were useless against solid projectiles moving at such speed. The rounds hammered into the Kethmori flagship's hull like a metal rainstorm. Each impact sent shockwaves through the alien vessel. Armor plates cracked and shattered, internal systems sparked and failed. The beautiful blue energy channels flickered and went dark as the storm of bullets tore through delicate alien technology on the Eternal Blade's bridge. Captain Velther held onto his command chair as his ship shook apart around him. Alarms screamed warnings in the Kethmori language. Emergency lights flashed red as systems failed one by one. "Damage report," he shouted over the noise. "Hull breaches." On deck 7 through 15, Sub-Captain Morthick called back. "Quantum matrix generators are offline. Main weapons are not responding. We're losing atmosphere in multiple sections." Velther could not believe what was happening. His flagship was being destroyed by simple metal bullets. 3 centuries of technological superiority meant nothing against human determination and brute force. "All ships, concentrate fire on the human vessel," he commanded, but his fleet was in chaos. The elegant formations that had conquered worlds were broken. Kethmori ships tried to retreat from the ironclad's guns, but the human vessel followed them relentlessly. Every time an alien ship tried to escape, railgun fire reached out to drag it back into the fight. Carter watched the destruction with cold satisfaction. "Amy, target their engines." "I want that flagship dead in space." "With pleasure, sir," Foster replied. She adjusted her targeting and sent a concentrated burst of storm cannon fire into the Eternal Blade's rear section. The alien ship's quantum drives exploded in a brilliant flash of blue light. "They're dead in space," Hammond reported. "No power, no weapons, no shields?" "Good," Carter said. Now comes the fun part. Deploy boarding pods. This was the most dangerous part of Carter's plan. The ironclad carried 200 Marines trained for ship-to-ship combat. While most navies relied on long-range weapons, Carter believed in taking the fight directly to the enemy. Boarding pods away, Hammond announced. Small armored vehicles launched from the ironclad's hull and rocketed toward damaged Kethmori ships. Each pod carried 10 Marines armed with simple but effective weapons, assault rifles, grenades, and explosive charges. The pods used magnetic clamps to attach themselves to alien hulls, then cut through the armor with plasma torches. The first Marines to board a Kethmori vessel found themselves in a strange alien world. The corridors were tall and narrow, designed for the thin Kethmori body shape. Strange blue lights provided dim illumination. The air smelled of ozone and something like burning metal. Sergeant Mike Thompson led his squad through the alien ships. Corridors. He was a big man from Texas who had joined the Marines to see action. Now he was getting more action than he had ever wanted. "Contact ahead," whispered Corporal Sarah Davis, his squad scout. She was small and quick, perfect for moving through tight spaces. Thompson motioned for his Marines to take positions. Around the corner, they could hear alien voices speaking in their strange language. The Kethmori crew was probably trying to organize a defense. "Flashbang," Thompson whispered to his demolitions expert. "Private Tony Garcia." Garcia nodded and pulled the pin from a stun grenade. He tossed it around the corner and the squad covered their ears. The explosion was deafening in the confined space. Thompson led the charge around the corner. 3 Kethmori warriors stood in the corridor, their purple eyes wide with shock from the blast. They carried energy weapons that looked like curved silver wands. The aliens tried to fire, but human bullets were faster. Thompson's assault rifle chattered as he sent a burst into the first alien. The creature fell backward, dark blood spreading across its gray uniform. The other Marines opened fire at the same time. In seconds, the fight was over. The Kethmori warriors lay dead in their own corridor, killed by simple human weapons and tactics. "Keep moving," Thompson ordered. "Find their bridge." Similar fights were happening throughout the alien fleet. Human Marines poured through boarding pods into damaged Kethmori ships. The aliens had never faced hand-to-hand combat before. Their technology was designed for clean, long-range battles. They had no idea how to fight humans who brought the war right to their doorstep. Back on the ironclad's bridge, Carter watched his Marines work through the enemy fleet like a virus. Each boarded ship soon went dark as human soldiers took control of vital systems. "Flagship is secure," Hammond reported. "Marines have reached their bridge," Carter smiled coldly. "Put me through to their captain." The screen filled with the image of Velthor, now a prisoner on his own bridge. The alien's uniform was torn and there was fear in his purple eyes. Behind him, human Marines stood guard with their weapons ready. "Captain Velthor," Carter said, "I believe you wanted to conquer Earth." The alien stared at him with something like horror. "This is impossible. You are primitives. Your technology is inferior." "Maybe," Carter replied. "But we don't give up, ever. That's the difference between your people and mine. You fight clean, elegant battles from long range. We fight dirty, up close, and personal." Velthor looked around at his ruined bridge, at the human soldiers who had taken his ship with simple weapons and raw courage. "What do you want?" "I want you to send a message to your empire," Carter said. "Tell them that humanity is not another easy conquest. Tell them that if they want our worlds, they'll have to go through us." "And we don't fight fair?" The Kethmori captain nodded slowly. For the first time in 3 centuries, the mighty 7th Fleet had been defeated, and it had been done by one human ship using nothing but fire and steel. News of the 7th Fleet's destruction spread across the galaxy like wildfire. For 300 years, the Kethmori Empire had been unstoppable. Their elegant ships and advanced weapons had conquered world after world without meaningful resistance. Now, in a single day, their most powerful fleet had been broken by one human warship. High Admiral Zethmar stood in the command center of the Imperial Palace on the Kethmori homeworld. Around him, holographic displays showed the disaster in horrifying detail. 200 ships reduced to burning wreckage. The mighty, eternal blade captured by primitive humans using simple bullets and brute force. How is this possible? Zethmar asked his advisors. His voice carried the weight of centuries of easy victory, now shattered by an impossible defeat. The humans fight differently than any species we have encountered, replied Science Master Kelthos. Their shields are weak, their weapons primitive, but they refuse to surrender. And their kinetic weapons can penetrate our quantum matrices. Zethmar studied the tactical recordings from the battle. The human ship called Ironclad moved like a predator among his elegant vessels. Instead of fighting at long range with precision, weapons, it had charged directly into the fleet and torn it apart with crude projectiles. Send the 12th and 10th fleets to human space, he ordered. We will crush them with overwhelming numbers. But even as he gave the command, Zethmar felt doubt creeping into his mind. The humans had found a weakness in Kethmori technology that no one had discovered in 3 centuries. What if they had found others? On Earth, Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the same command center where he had sent Captain Ben Carter on his desperate mission. But now the room buzzed with excited activity. Engineers and tacticians worked frantically to understand how the Ironclad had achieved the impossible. Report, Morrison said to Lieutenant Commander Lisa Hayes. Every shipyard in human space is working around the clock, Hayes replied. We're retrofitting our entire fleet with kinetic weapons based on the Ironclad's design. Railguns, storm cannons, armor-piercing rounds, anything that can punch through those alien shields. Morrison nodded with satisfaction. The humans had learned something important from Carter's victory. Advanced technology meant nothing if you could not adapt when your enemy found a new way to fight. What about Captain Carter? The Ironclad is leading a task force to liberate the new Geneva colony. Early reports suggest another victory. The aliens are retreating faster than they advance. Morrison smiled grimly. Ben Carter had become something of a legend in the past weeks. Stories of his victory spread throughout human space, inspiring crews who had thought the war was hopeless. The man who fought dirty and won had shown everyone that humans did not have to play by alien rules. In the Proxima system, Captain Kate Sullivan watched from the bridge of her rebuilt destroyer as human ships engaged a Kethmori patrol fleet. The battle was nothing like the massacre she had survived weeks ago. Now the human vessels carried railguns and kinetic cannons. Their armor was thicker, their tactics more aggressive. Direct hit on the lead alien ship, reported her weapons officer. Their shields are failing. Sullivan watched purple energy. Beams strike her ship's new armor plating. The thick steel held against the alien weapons, just like the Ironclad had proven possible. Meanwhile, her railguns punched hole after hole in the elegant alien vessels. All enemy ships are retreating, the tactical officer announced. We've won. Sullivan felt a surge of pride and relief. The aliens who had seemed invincible were running from human ships. The galaxy was learning that humanity would not go quietly into the dark. Across the galaxy, similar battles were being fought. The Kethmori Empire found itself facing an enemy that refused to fight fair. Human ships charged into close combat instead of maintaining elegant formations. Human weapons used brute force instead of sophisticated technology. Human tactics relied on aggression and adaptation instead of precise planning, most disturbing of all. The humans were winning. Captain Velther sat in a prison cell on Luna Base, watching news reports of his empire's defeats. Each day brought word of another Kethmori fleet retreating, another world liberated by human forces. The species he had dismissed as primitive was systematically dismantling 3 centuries of conquest. A guard unlocked his cell door and Admiral Morrison entered. The human looked older than when Velther had first seen him, but there was satisfaction in his eyes. Your empire is calling for peace talks, Morrison said without ceremony. They want to negotiate a withdrawal from human space. Velther looked up at his captor. You have taught us a valuable lesson, Admiral. Power means nothing if you cannot adapt when faced with the unexpected. Your people conquered worlds by being superior, Morrison replied. But you never learned how to fight. Someone who refused to admit they were beaten. Morrison left the alien to his thoughts and walked to the observation deck. Through the reinforced windows, he could see Earth floating in space like a blue and white jewel. The homeworld that had seemed doomed just months ago was now safe. A young officer approached with a report. Sir, Captain Carter's task force has liberated 3 more colonies. The aliens are pulling back to their core systems. Morrison took the report but continued staring at Earth. The war was not over, but it had fundamentally changed. The Kethmori Empire was no longer an unstoppable force. They had learned that elegant weapons and advanced shields meant nothing against an enemy willing to bring knives to a laser fight. The humans had proven something important to the galaxy. Technology could be overcome by determination. Sophisticated tactics could be beaten by raw aggression. And sometimes, when civilization was at stake, the best answer was not to fight smart, but to fight hard. In the months that followed, the Kethmori Empire continued its retreat. Their perfect fleets could not adapt to human tactics fast enough to stem the tide of defeats. World after world slipped from their control. As human forces pressed their advantage, the other species that had been conquered by the Empire watched in amazement. If primitive humans could defeat the mighty Kethmori, perhaps they could win their freedom as well. Rebellions broke out on dozens of worlds. The empire that had seemed eternal began to crumble. Captain Ben Carter never became a traditional hero. He remained rough around the edges, more comfortable with bullets than diplomacy. But he had shown the galaxy something important. When faced with impossible odds, humans did not surrender or retreat. They found a way to make the impossible possible. The USS Ironclad continued to serve as humanity's first line of defense, its guns ready to remind anyone who threatened Earth that humans fought with fire and steel. And in the end that had made all the difference. The age of Kethmori dominance was over. The age of human determination had begun.